Hi readers, welcome to Novels with Nat. It is Friday evening when I'm filming this, so apologies if the lighting is a bit odd. The sun is going down. Hopefully the lighting won't change too much while I'm filming this, but tonight I wanted to film a tier ranking video, specifically tier ranking popular thriller authors. So I've read quite a number of thriller books, and I do tend to have my favorites when it comes to authors. There are also authors that I gravitate towards and read all of their books, and there's definitely a hierarchy when it comes to authors for me. So I thought it would be fun to tier rank them. So that's what I want to do today. I've got my computer here, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. First, let's go over the ranking system. So at the top, I have read on release day. So what this means is I'm going to pick this book up on the day it's released. I'm super excited to get to it, and I'm going to put any other book that I have aside and focus on this one. Then under that, I have add to my TBR. So basically, that means anything that this author releases, I'm automatically putting on my TBR and I'm going to read it eventually, or I'm going to get to it as soon as I can. And then just below that, I have depends on synopsis. So these are authors that I don't read all of their releases. I just read the ones that have a synopsis that sounds interesting to me or sounds intriguing. But if I'm not too interested by the premise of the particular release that year, then I'll probably skip it. And then under that, I have massive hype required. So these are authors that I no longer read from generally, but if they have a new release that is getting a lot of hype, that's super popular, that everybody is saying is a great book, or if I have friends or family telling me that I have to read, then I will read it. And then at the very bottom, I have Never Again. These are authors that I've tried multiple times, but I just will never read their books again. They're just not the author for me. So here at the bottom, I have gathered a list of a bunch of popular thriller authors. The rules are, or the rules that I made for myself, are that in order for an author to be added to this list, they have to be relatively well known, number one. But number two, I have to have read a minimum of 2 of their books. So if I've only read one book from a thriller author, they're not on this list. All of these authors, I've read 2, if not many more, of their books. Okay, so I think let's get to tier ranking them. Okay, so first up we have Lucinda Berry. She writes pretty short, fast-paced type popcorn thrillers. They're almost always psychological thrillers. I have enjoyed them in the past. I'm gonna say for her, I'm gonna say add to my TBR simply because they're so short and fast-paced, so they're not much of a commitment. So even if the synopsis doesn't sound amazing to me, I probably will pick it up eventually. I have not read her entire backlist, but I've read quite a few of them, and I usually sprinkle them in when I need just like a palate cleanser type book. And then next up, we have Lucy Foley. So I've read all of Lucy Foley's books, and unfortunately, I've only enjoyed half of them. I really liked the guest list and the Paris apartment, but the hunting party and the midnight feast, I hated. I gave them 2 stars each. So she's definitely very down the middle for me. I feel like I will continue to pick up her books. I usually give authors a 3 chance system. So if I read a third book of hers that I don't enjoy at all, I probably won't pick her up anymore. But for now, since she's only had 2 strikes, I'm going to put her in add to my TBR. So next up we have Catherine Faulkner. I have enjoyed the 2 books that I've read from her so far, and I think I will continue to read from her. I've only read 2 of her books, so for now I'm going to say add to TBR. That's seeming to be a pretty popular category for right now. Okay, next up we have S.A. Cosby. S.A. Cosby, I read purely for the writing. I love his writing. I love his prose. It is so amazing and eloquent, and it's just, he has a way with words for sure. In terms of the actual plot and storylines, I absolutely love Razorblade Tears. Like 5 stars, one of my all-time favorites. But the other books I didn't connect with as much, and I wasn't as interested in the plot. But I just love his writing so much. So I think I'm gonna say, shoot, it's between read on release day and add to TBR. Mm, I'm gonna say add to TBR. Just because I feel like I wouldn't drop everything to read his book on release day, but I will be picking it up very shortly after it's released. He has one coming out this year, King of Ashes, which I'm very excited about. Okay, and then we have Liv Constantine. This is the author duo that wrote The Last Miss Parrish, one of my favorite books of all time. Um, I have to say, their other books, I have not read very many of them, and I think I've read one other, and I didn't enjoy it as much. So I'm gonna say add to TBR. Okay, this category is getting very full, so hopefully we have some others that land somewhere else. Next up, we have Kia Abdullah. I have really enjoyed all of her books. I find them to be different from other thrillers. They're like courtroom thrillers, so they do take place um, in a court case and you're seeing it unfolding. And I really like that. It's refreshing, it's different, it's not like the other books that I read. I'm gonna say read on release day. I always pick her book up. I always pick her books up right as they're released. So I'm gonna put her there. Okay. This one is gonna be an unpopular opinion. I know everybody loves Alice Feeney. All of her books are super popular. Rock, Paper, Scissors was super popular a few years ago. I think it's one of her most popular books. Um, I have read a handful of her books. I've read Daisy Darker, Sometimes I Lie, and Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I didn't like any of them. And I feel like, that's my three strike rule. I read three books. I didn't enjoy any of the three. And so, unfortunately, Alice Feeney is just not the author for me, and I probably won't read any of her books anymore. So she's going to have to be a never again. Sorry, Alice. Okay, next up we have Frida McFadden. Don't judge me, but I do read her books on release day whenever they are released. I know that she is not an all time favorite author for me. I don't typically rate her books very highly, but they are entertaining. They're fast reads, they're quick pace, and they're a palate cleanser. I also want to be in the know of what people are talking about. Her books are very popular. So I do like to keep up with them and see which ones I enjoy, which ones I don't. I do really like the Housemaid series, it's my favorite of her books. Other than that, I usually give them like 2 to 3 stars. So they're not my favorites, but I do read them on release day. Okay, Tarryn Fisher. I have read two books from her. They were 1 star and 2 star. So, although I have said that I have a three strike rule, I just know that she's not the author for me. I just really don't like her writing. I really don't like her twists. Her books drag on for me. They're not interesting. Unfortunately, she's going to be a never again. And again, not to be negative, but up next we have Taylor Adams, who is another never again. I No Exit I read, it was fine, but I read The Last Word and I gave it 1 star. It was so bad. I hated that book. So unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to read any more from Taylor Adams. Geneva Rose. I've read Home is Where the Bodies Are and The Perfect Marriage. They were both just fine. I didn't really like either of them, to be honest. In order for me to read another one of her books, I think it would have to have some kind of massive hype or someone would have to recommend it to me for me to consider picking it up. So I'm going to put Geneva Rose there. Okay, next up we have Kirsten Modulin, I think it's pronounced. She also writes very short, fast paced thrillers. Um, to be honest, I don't hear too much about her in terms of like I don't think her books are gonna have massive hype. And I haven't really enjoyed any of them enough for me to read more from her in the future. So I think I'm gonna say never again. Okay, next up we have Gillian Flynn. She, I don't believe, releases very many books at all. I think she has 3 books and a novella. I've read 2 of the books and the novella. She's the author of Gone Girl. Absolutely love her writing. I don't think she has any books planned to come out anytime soon, but if one were to be announced, I would 100% be reading it on release day. And next is Claire Douglas. She's a pretty solid thriller author for me. I haven't given any of her books 5 stars, but they typically land at about a 4 star, which is solid, enjoyable, no major complaints or anything like that. So I think for Claire Douglas, I will always add her books to my TBR. Okay, Holly Jackson. This is the author of the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, which I thoroughly enjoyed. She's really the only author in the young adult genre that I read regularly. I'm not huge into young adult books. I just don't typically enjoy them, but I do really like Holly Jackson and her books. So every time she releases a book, I will be adding it to my TBR. Okay, Jennifer Hillier. I've read 2 of her books. The Butcher was fine, and then I read Jar of Hearts, which I absolutely loved. She also has some older books that I have on my physical TBR, but I haven't gotten to just yet. But in terms of new releases, I think for me to pick them up, it's going to depend on the synopsis. I would have to be interested in the topic of that book in order to pick it up. Okay, and then we have Sarah Pinborough. I love Sarah Pinborough, the author of my favorite thriller, Behind Her Eyes. I read her books on release day. At the time that I'm filming this, her book for 2025 is coming out in, I think, like 2.5, 3 weeks. I am so excited for it. I will be reading it on the day that it is released. Okay, and then we have Adrian McKinty. This author, again, was very split for me. I gave The Chain by him 4 stars, but then I read The Island and I hated it. I gave it 1 star. I think I get the feeling that The Chain was a bit of an anomaly for me. I just really enjoyed the premise of that book. It was super interesting. It's basically about this kind of organization that will call a parent and tell them that they have kidnapped their child. And in order for them to release this child, that parent has to kidnap another child. And it's kind of like trade it in for their child, and then it's just a chain of this happening, and then the next parent will be called and told that your kid has been kidnapped and you need to kidnap a child to save yours. So it was a super interesting premise. I really liked that book, but I don't think I'm going to pick up any more from this author. Okay, and then we have Serafina Nova Glass. Again, a lot of these authors, I read one of their books and I give it 5 stars and I love it, and then I pick up more of their books and they're just not for me. I feel like that's the case with this author. I loved On a Quiet Street, but her other books have all been 3 stars. So I think for me, it's going to depend on the synopsis with this author. Okay, and then we have Sally Hepworth, one of my favorite authors. She writes kind of literary thrillers that really focus on like family relationships. I read all of her books on release day. I have read all of her books so far, and I am super excited for another book from her. I don't think one is currently announced, but I will be keeping an eye out and hopefully we'll get one very soon. So she's definitely a read on release day. Okay, and then we have Jason Rekulak. This is the author of Hidden Pictures, which I loved. The Last One at the Wedding, I did not love. Give it 2.5 stars. It was not great, but I feel like I enjoyed Hidden Pictures enough to say that I'm going to add all of his books to my TBR, and we'll see if he strikes out 2 more times. In that case, then I probably won't read from him anymore. But so far, it's just 50-50, so I will continue to read his books. And then we have Riley Sager. I definitely read him on release day. He releases typically every July. Surprisingly, I've only actually given one of his books 5 stars, and that was Lock Every Door. I have enjoyed others from him. They always range in the 3 to 4 stars, not including Survive the Night, which was awful. That was 1 star. But I do really like his writing. His books are really enjoyable, so I always read them on release day. They're also just great summer thrillers. They're just, I don't know, I just when I think of July reading, I think of Riley Sager because that's typically when we get a new book from him. So I'm gonna definitely be reading his book this July, which I think is like a takes place on a train, and it's a bit got like elements of historical fiction weaved in as well, so it's a bit different from his others. So I'm definitely interested to pick that one up. Okay, and then we have Paula Hawkins. Her books, in my opinion, have all been really boring. I have not liked any of the books that I've read from her. Um, I'm honestly not even aware if she has any books planned to come out or if she's published anything recently. I don't think I'm going to read any more Paula Hawkins books. Okay, then we have Ruth Ware, really popular thriller author. I love The Turn of the Key. The rest of her books have just been okay for me. The rest of the ones that I've read anyway. Um, I think Honestly, I think with Ruth Ware, from now on, it's going to depend on the synopsis. I've just been disappointed too many times with Ruth Ware, so I think it's going to depend on the synopsis. Okay, Lane Fargo. I've read two of this author's books, her two thrillers anyway. She has written some other books like The Favorites that aren't thrillers, but when it comes to thrillers, I read They Never Learn, which is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. I loved it, 5 stars. I also read Temper, which I did not like. I give that 2 stars, but I'm gonna be adding her books to my TBR if she comes out with another thriller, and we'll see what I feel about the third one. So add to TBR. Okay, and then we have Alex Michaelides, the author of The Silent Patient, The Fury, and The Maidens. He's automatically read on release day. I love this author. My favorite of the three, which is probably an unpopular opinion, is The Fury. I know a lot of people didn't like that book, but I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite thrillers. Okay, and then we have Mary Kubica. She's also one of my favorite thriller authors. I've only given one of her books 5 stars. So that was Local Woman Missing. But all of her books to me land between a 3 and a 4 star typically. I really do enjoy them. They're typically multiple POV, which I do like. They're fast paced, they're pretty detailed. They have a lot of red herrings going on, which I really enjoy. They always keep you on your toes, keep you guessing. So I definitely read her books on release day. Okay, and then we have Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. This is an author duo that often writes together. They've written books like The Wife Between Us, The Golden Couple. Um, I've read quite a number of their books. I always add their books to my TBR and I always enjoy them. So I'm going to put it there. Okay, and then we have Liz Nugent. Again, another author that I've really enjoyed one book, and then the other book that I've read was not that great, in my opinion. I loved Strange Sally Diamond, one of my favorite books that I read last year. Um, I think with Liz Nugent, it's going to depend on the synopsis. Okay, and then we have Gillian McAllister. I love this author. She just released a book and I read it earlier this year. It was Famous Last Words. I gave it 5 stars. It was outstanding. I definitely read her books on release day. Okay, and now we have Stacy Willingham. This is another one of those authors that for me is on their last chance. I read A Flicker in the Dark and I enjoyed it. It was good. And then the subsequent releases I have enjoyed less and less and less. There was All the Dangerous Things, um, Only If You're Lucky, and now we're getting another one later this year. So that will be their third strike. If I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to read any more from this author. The one coming out later this year is called Forget Me Not. So I will definitely read it, but after that, if I don't enjoy it, I probably won't pick up this author again. So I think massive hype would be required. I'm going to put Stacy Willingham there. Okay, and then we have Peter Swanson. I probably am not going to read any more Peter Swanson books. I did like The Kind Worth Killing, but that was it. So I think Peter Swanson, unfortunately, is going to be a never again for me. He's not a bad author, he's just not the author for me. Okay, and then we have Lisa Jewell. Lisa Jewell is an outstanding author. I really enjoy her books. I love Invisible Girl. I love Then She Was Gone. I will read any book that she releases, 100%. But the question is, will I read it on release day? I have to be honest with myself in that the book that she has set to release later this year, I think it's called Don't Let Him In. It's got like a blue cover. That book, the synopsis just sounds boring to me. I don't know why. It just sounds like every other thriller synopsis I've ever read. It's just vague. It says something about like three women who are somehow connected to this man, and that's the mystery. So I'm going to say I will add it to my TBR, and I will read all of her releases, just not on release day. Okay, we have Sherry Lapina. I read her books occasionally, but she's just not the author for me. I, again, don't give her books very high in terms of ratings. But if there was a book that had massive hype or that everyone was talking about, I would definitely pick it up. It's worth the read. So I'm going to say massive hype required. Okay, John Mars. I love John Mars. I have loved every book from him that I have read. The only one I didn't like, I DNF'd The Vacation. I did not like that one at all. There was way too many characters, but all the other books that I have read from him, I have really enjoyed. Some of my favorites are The Passengers. The One is definitely up there. I also really liked What Lies Between Us. So John Mars, I definitely will read on release day. This is the author of the Maid series. So I don't think she has any other books that I'm aware of, but I always do read the Maid series, not necessarily on release day, but I always add them to my TBR and I read them eventually. I have the third book on my physical TBR and I will be getting to it this year, hopefully sooner rather than later. Add to TBR. Okay, so let's take a look. This looks good. I think, up here, obviously, these are all my favorite thriller authors. These are the ones that I enjoy the most, and then I always pick up their books. These ones, unfortunately, I'm not saying these ones in the Never Again are bad authors or that their books are bad. It's just that they're not for me. They don't jive with my tastes. I always just end disappointed when I finish their books. But just because I put them here doesn't mean that you wouldn't like their books. So it's really dependent. I don't think that they're bad authors. I just think that their writing style isn't for me. Okay, so that's it for this tier ranking video. I would love to know in the comments what are some of your favorite thriller authors. Also, let me know if you disagree with me on any of these rankings that I've done. I would love to know. I always love watching and filming tier ranking videos, so I hope to do more. I have a lot of different ideas and concepts of things that we can tier rank, so keep an eye out for more videos like that coming soon. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in another one very soon. Bye!